I love kimchi, to the point I eat kimchi every single day. Honestly, every day I need my kimchi. Eating kimchi every day, ironically, can be really expensive in terms of buying pre-made kimchi. It's like £5 for a very small jar. When I shared on Instagram that I make kimchi, a lot of people asked me how I make it. I am not the creator of kimchi by any means necessary. It's just something I really appreciate. Kimchi is actually a Korean dish made by salting and then fermenting vegetables. This made them last so much longer, and in that fermentation process of the kimchi, you give your gut microbes really nice nutrients. So you save money by making affordable ingredients last really long on top of feeding your gut bacteria. So win-win-win. The normal staple ingredients include Chinese cabbage, carrots, garlic, ginger, and a few other ingredients I realized that I haven't even brought out yet. But this is how I make it. I make a plant-based version of kimchi, so I don't actually have fish sauce in it. I just kind of substitute. And with kimchi, you can actually play around and find a way that you like it best, whether you make it hotter, more garlicky, more gingery, add different fruits, different vegetables, different root vegetables. Once you start making it and get used to it, you can really experiment and find a taste that you love the best. You're going to need is the Chinese cabbage. If, like me, you live in the UK, I've personally seen Chinese cabbage in a lot of supermarkets, from Sainsbury's, Ocado, Marks and Spencer's, as well as local greengrocers. So I like to cut down the centre, then I cut the core off, and then I cut it down the centre again, so in half and then in half, and then cut them into 1 to 2 inch slices. You can make these bigger or smaller depending on your preference. This is just the size that I personally love when I make my kimchi. Now, I wash after I cut because I feel like this way you can really get into like the little crevices of the cabbage to make sure it's all clean. And then once you've given it a really good wash, drain out all the excess water. Now it's time to salt the Chinese cabbage, essentially brining it. The salt's going to help draw out all the moisture, all the water within the cabbage and remove it. And this will mean instead of the cabbage getting all soggy and mushy, it's going to stay crisp, and also it's going to allow it to draw in more of that flavour we're going to season it with. Then let this salt for at least 2 hours. So while the cabbage is salting, I get my veggies ready. I've got my spring onions, green onions, and I cut these into about 2 inches. And I've also got some carrots. You can also add more root vegetables. It really depends on what you can get access to at your local supermarket, and I can always get hold of spring onions and carrots. I cut my carrots down into these thin little sticks. So they're thin enough to be small, but thick enough to still have a bite. Then set these aside as prep. Okay, so to make our paste, I've got about 5-6 cloves of garlic, a really big amount of ginger. I like my kimchi really gingery. Just peel off the skin, slice it up, and then for sweetness, I'm going to use an apple. Traditionally, Chinese pear is used. This is just something that I don't really have access to in the UK, and I think the apple does a really great job of adding a sweetness, and apples are packed full of nutrients. I slice it up just so I can get it in the blender, blend it into a paste, and then into a bowl, I'm going to add some miso paste. This is just a substitute for not using fish sauce, to have something that's still umami that doesn't involve fish sauce. Then I've got my gochugaru, which is Korean red pepper flakes. Kimchi can't exist without this. It's kind of like key essential flavor, deliciousness, spice. And on top of that, I've got some soy sauce, and just give that a mix. I've noticed over time I'm adding more and more gochugaru. I think I'm getting like the buzz for having really spicy kimchi. But you start small and you build yourself up to where you feel comfortable. Then I mix it in with my carrots and my spring onions. Now that the cabbage has sat in the salt, you'll see it's ready because it gets really bendy and pliable. Now you just want to wash off all the salt. I do taste it just to make sure I've got it all off. Then drain off as much liquid as you can. Then add the cabbage straight in the bowl with your paste and veggies. Now you can use gloves for this. My hands are just really used to chopping chilies, working with chilies, that it's really fine for me to mix with my hands. And of course my hands have been washed and cleaned before I've done this. But yeah, as I say, you can use gloves. Once you've given it a really nice mix to combine, place it into a glass container that has been cleaned and sterilized. My dishwasher and my oven both sterilized jars, which is really helpful. And now all you have to do is wait. And I promise you, this isn't really complicated. Once you get used to it, it's really easy to make. Now that it's in the jar, a few things to avoid is filling it to the top, because as it sits and starts to ferment, you'll see that it kind of has this liquid that kind of covers it. And what happens in the fermenting process is you'll see little bubbles appear. If you put the lid on top, the gases can't release. So the gases will try really hard to get out, which could break your glass jar. This is a sterilized jar. I sterilize it in the dishwasher. You can also sterilize it in some ovens. I just like to sterilize before I ferment. But yeah, so sometimes I put something on it so it's like a very small gap. So let it ferment for 2 days in a room temperature, on the worktop, somewhere safe, and then store it in the fridge. I've heard kimchi can last up to 6 months in the fridge. I eat kimchi every day, so this will not last me 6 months even if I wanted it to. Eat it within a month, and that's my kind of safe space, though it can go longer, but I eat it all, so there's that. I hope you enjoyed this video of how I make my kimchi. I'm fully getting in my fermentation bag. I've bought books on it. I wanted to start this last year. I just couldn't get my act together basically, and the kimchi was the first step. I am just kind of obsessed for my gut, and just it's like a science experiment that your body loves and you get to enjoy with flavors. Let me know in the comments if you want me to share this journey with you. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this recipe, it helps me out by giving it a thumbs up and leave a comment. And yeah, thank you. Bye.